Welcome to Intuitive You, how to heal and create the life you desire. This is Abby Gooch and sponsored by Oneness Talk Radio. So happy to be here. Big shout out to Sri and Kira and Bria, who is always so amazing and just working together. So thank you everyone for showing up, for just listening and being here. We're just so happy you're here. So today I have such a special guest. This woman was my first NLP teacher. So for those of you that know me, I teach something called intuitive success coaching. And a big part of that is neuro-linguistic programming. And so this woman brings tears to my eyes because I literally remember walking into her office and she was like, you have so much light. You can choose to use it in business or not. But I was like, oh, I'm going to change the world. I'm going to do a wellness center. And she's like, you go, whatever. And then she said, remember your mission and vision. Just stay in your mission and vision. Why you're here. And I took that as this little 19-year-old starting my practice. And I was like, she's right. If I have a strong mission and vision and love to heal the world or to let it heal me, however you want to look at it, that will drive me. And it has. So with all due respect and love and great appreciation and adoration for this amazing woman, Janice Erickson, who, like I said, is this amazing teacher and being of light, I want to welcome her to the show. And Janice, just take it away from here.
Thanks so much, Abby. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been such a journey that we've been on together for, I'm not going to say how many years, but it's absolutely a blessing to be here, and I look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So Janice, I know you come from such a place of love and light, and you started a company way back when I was your student on Lightwork seminars. And I just know you come from that place. So I'd love you to share, what that means and how listeners and I and everybody can connect more deeply to their intuition.
Yes, well, that's quite the question, isn't it? So it's interesting to me because I was thinking about this yesterday, talking to some friends of mine, and what really is intuition, and I feel like it has changed for me so much over time, specifically when I started digging into NLP a bit more and understanding that there are multiple parts of ourselves. There's multiple parts of the world, the universe, whatever it is that we call this big space that we're part of. And I've always worked on intuition that either came from the heart or from the head. And there was this moment in time, I don't know if you remember, I was living in San Diego at the time, and I had this brand new apartment. I was living on my own, and I started feeling really sick, and I couldn't understand what was going on with me. There was nothing physically in my environment. And I was so sick that I laid down on the couch. I could barely move. And I closed my eyes and I went into what I can only call a very deep trance, where I found myself kind of lifting above my body and looking down at myself and somewhat diagnosing, not in a medical terms, but what it was that was up with me. And did a very quick little process, brought some light into the situation. I can go into details if you're interested. But it was at that moment that I realized that what I had thought of as intuition, as just this knowingness in my brain somewhere or in some part of me, wasn't fully encapsulating the situation, that there was an intuition that was bigger than my body, bigger than my mind, bigger than my heart, that superseded all things and drove me to heal myself very quickly and without much conscious thought at all. And today, in my role in a business setting, in a more corporate setting than I had in the past, I've begun to understand that intuition comes about from all the different parts of ourselves. And it's really interesting because as I was thinking about that, I was thinking about you and I playing and doing some chakra work in our office in Pacific Beach back in San Diego, and doing some crystal healing on our chakras. And I really firmly believe that we can have intuition from each of our individual chakras and from different mental parts of ourselves and behavioral parts of ourselves that really allow for different expressions of knowingness that are either related to our body, our mind, our purpose, mission, vision, or just our thought. And so, to get a very long-winded way of answering your question, cultivating your intuition to me is very much about being in tune with yourself, listening to your body. Uh, my mom taught me this very early on, to really pay attention to my body. She worked a lot with nutrition, and listening to what nutritional needs do I need? If I just stop and I pay attention to my cells, what do my cells want right now? And so it's really, I think that's the first thing, is you have to know thyself, right? That was a big Edgar Casey piece, know thyself. And from there, you can decide where that intuition, where you really want to build on it. But it takes practice, and it takes time, and it takes dedication. It isn't just like somebody snaps their fingers and suddenly you're intuitive, right?
Right. Well, I love that you mentioned the word knowing. To me, that's the simplest, easiest, most certain answer, is it's a sense of knowing.
Mhm.
And I feel like our intuition is always developing. So I love how I feel like I'm the living example. Like I always take it to heart, right? And it's like right now, it's like I told you before, and a lot of people know, like my intuition was to move, and now my body's like, ooh, I'm not sure. There's an intuition that may not be the best thing. So I'm like at pause, like, okay, what's next? So I think that each moment is our body telling us. Like I'd love for you to go into your experience more, because I'm learning from you, is like, what is my intuitive self body saying? What is, those different parts that you talk about intuitions, because for everybody listening, whatever choice you have or whatever's going on in your life right now, where can you use your intuition and how can you develop it? So Janice, if you could kind of take us on a little journey or experience of how do we find out what our intuition is telling us? What is that message? And can we trust it? Of course we can, but how do we trust it, right? Because I think a lot of times the mind comes in. I know for myself, it'll even doubt something I know. And it's like, what? So getting that place of knowing and certainty.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will be perfectly upfront and honest, because I can't do anything else. There isn't always certainty.
Right.
It's you're never going to have all of the answers. It's not like we're doing data and analytics where there's a clear-cut number that spits out. But it was funny. I was thinking about this right before the call,
Yeah.
and there is sometimes your intuition, like let's say my heart wants one thing, but my gut wants another. COVID, a lot of people have been talking about gaining weight and
Right.
the emotional eating and all of that. And those are two different parts of ourselves that are intuitively giving us contradictory messages. Is one right and the other wrong? Absolutely not. They're just different messages. And so to me, the way I look at it is when I have those competing parts, right? When in NLP, we talk a lot about the different parts of ourselves and really honoring the different parts of ourselves. When we are forced to make a decision, sometimes there is a contradiction in there. And, your heart wants one thing, your stomach wants another, your brain wants another. And to me, there's never a wrong decision, right? There's only ones that are going to lead in different directions. So the choice really comes down to which part of you do you want to lead in the coming months. So I'll give you an example. Every New Year's, I have this ritual where I do a fair bit of meditation. I spend a couple of days just kind of with myself. And I'm a Sagittarian to the extreme. I have to have my goals, and I have to take the time to sit and plan and really check in with myself. I do my numerology and just kind of see what's going on in the world. But intuitively, I already know the answer to that before it even comes, because if you do pay attention to numerology, most of us that are more intuitive will start picking up on those themes at least 3 months before they actually start. I know
Yep.
you've
I
had that
always feel things
experience.
before they start. I'm like, really?
Yeah. My mom and I talk about this all the time. Like, I was like, why do I even read that? I already know. But sometimes we need that validation to remind ourselves that we do know. So I spend that time to really check in with myself. What are the themes going on in the world? What is this year's life path going to look like? And I stop and I do a meditation where it's a very simple one. I take a deep breath. I make sure I'm grounded. And I usually do this lying flat, if I can. And I start with my root chakra and I just breathe into that space for a couple of minutes and just sit with it. And with the knowledge and the understanding of what those themes are in my life, I just listen and I feel and I pay attention to any images that come to mind from that center. And then I journal. What is it that it's saying? What images, what colors, what thoughts arise? And if it's nothing, I look at that as silence. And that part of me is good. It's just good. And it doesn't have anything that I need to be aware of or point to. It's just, okay, we're good. And then I move on to the next chakra and I move through each one systematically, really listening to what does that have to say for me? What's the message? What do I need to pay attention to? And then once I have all of that information, because I am a fairly cerebral person, I do have to analyze this later on. I take a look at all of those pieces and I set my goals for the year to honor each one of those parts of me to make sure that I am staying on track. And that's how I really balance my intuition and my knowingness with kind of my cerebral conscious part of me that does need that sense of being in control some of the time. And that's really, really worked for me. And so if I get those certain decisions that might be, kind of out of balance or one is getting more attention than the other, that does happen. I'll say, okay, heart, are you okay with sitting this one out?
Yeah.
And like, okay, you'll come back tomorrow. It's almost like dealing like the toddler. Can you sit this one out? You can come back tomorrow.
Right. Yeah, I love that. I absolutely love that. And I was just thinking for people, if you want to know what the chakras are that she's talking about, if you go to lifeforceconnection.com and then you put your cursor over certification and you go down to the intuitive factor, you'll see all the chakras. So what Janice is talking about is these activations, these centers of being. They basically correspond to different emotional and physical aspects of you, spiritual aspects of you. So when you balance them, you're in alignment with your highest truth, your highest self, right? So Janice, I don't know if you want to add anything else to what the chakras are, just to let everybody know. Most people listening probably know what they are, but just in case, like what that actually means to, your chakras.
Yeah. So for me, I have always looked at them as energy centers, and energy centers as in the way of they hold a certain vibration and a certain meaning. And I do believe to some extent they're energy, and they're also a metaphor, a way for our brain to understand the different parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
And so I follow very much like the colors and the symbolism of them. So the root chakra kind of being that part that grounds us into the earth and into our body and is very much involved with the world around us. Whereas, heart chakra kind of being the part that guides your emotions and your kind of how you show up with other people in the world. And then all the way up to kind of your intuitive sense, or the part that I know is your life force connection, right? And the part that connects us to all that is. And so kind of spending that time, especially if you do yoga, I'm sure you've spent a fair bit of time working through the chakras and breathing energy through them, just to kind of activate them and open up all of the different parts of yourself so that you can become more intuitive. Because when there's either an energetic or a mental block, the intuition kind of gets stuck, right? Because the energy gets stagnant and it doesn't allow for that information to flow in a way that you might want it to.
So when you said block, I felt like, that's a lot of the work I do, and you also are so good at. If somebody's experiencing a block, how can they clear that block so their energy can flow? So yeah, I feel like really you're really good at that. What would that look like where somebody's like, hey, I feel something, but I can feel this block, or I don't know or understand. How does that block clear and release and have the freedom of clarity?
Yeah. So there's a few things, right? There's about as many ways to address this as there are people in the world. Some are more useful than others. But I think it has to be true for you, right? This is also, all healing, all unlocking, it's all intuitive, right? It's what is true for you. And this is something that has been with me since as long as I can remember. Uh, and, there's a lot of different kinds of chakra healing. There's emotional healing, psychosomatic healing, literally every system out there, I believe, is targeting one of those chakras, whether you intend for it or not. Right. So there are some therapies like massage and things that are fairly body oriented, and they can kind of get the chi moving, any sort of emotional release, crying, exercise, all of these things can open that. But the trick is, if you don't spend the time to pay attention to where the block is, you could be doing the thing that isn't really helping, right? There's so many wonderful therapies out there, but it has to treat what it is that you're dealing with at the time. And that really means meditation. And so you'll hear me, like, everything to me, the answer is meditation first. Be still and know. Go inside, breathe, be with where you are, and let that kind of be your guide.
I love that. I always think of you as like this little Zen Buddha. I mean, it's just so funny because you have that like peacefulness and calmness. And I still remember, again, a conversation walking in, probably again. And I think we're sitting in your office, like doing the coaching or work, whatever you want to call it. And you were like, well, what do you want, Abby? Like, it was just kind of like, well, what do you want? Because like, it's all here for you. And I was like, I want to do this wellness center. You're like, okay. And then like, it happened like 6 months later, so it's like, it really is kind of like, what do you want? It's there, it's available, and the block can clear. And your first suggestion is meditate, know, feel the stillness. And then, listen to what your chakras are telling you, the energies, the intuitions behind each chakra center. And then your answer, I mean, the whole thing with intuitive success coaching is we know the answer. And I think it's a constant discovery and unfolding and process for sure, like feeling, who we are. So I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I have always found it fascinating that the way that we go about this, I used to have a lot of, when I had my practice, I had a lot of people who came to me, and the question really was like, what am I meant to do with my life? Where am I going? How do I know the answer? And really the goal of any NLP session or hypnotherapy session or energy healing session, coaching, whatever it may be, is getting our conscious minds out of our own way to get to what is that truth?
Yeah.
What is it that we really want? And like I said before, it's not always one thing, because we're not a static being, right? We're constantly in flux. If 2020 has taught us anything, change is the truth, and we're constantly in motion, and what we may want today could be different from tomorrow. So I think it's really important that we listen to all parts of ourselves and honor all parts of ourselves. But to your point, you have to have the goal, right? You have to have that vision. You've got to have the purpose, and then listen to all parts of you to propel you in that direction so that you can go towards it with a single point laser focus. And most people are able to achieve or succeed or whatever it is that they're looking for when they have that laser point focus. The trick is getting to that point, right? Right?
Yeah, finding what you really want, not just what you say you want, but that actually feels right and all parts of you align with.
Yes, not what you've been told to want. So if we have time, I'd love to tell you the story, because a lot of people have asked me this over the years, because I stepped away after I started my healing practice when I was about 26 years old. And that was, everybody probably thought I was crazy to start a business that early, except for you. You did it even sooner. Congrats to that. And, it was something that I don't think I ever made a conscious choice to do it. It just unfolded in front of me as if it was meant to be. And there was no thought about it. It was like, this is what we're doing. Here we go. And it was a successful business. And I thoroughly enjoyed every part of it for many years, 15, I believe. And when I was decided to step away from the healing business, I got just as many questions as to why would you step away when this is very much your calling. And I think it's really important for people to understand that our calling can be anything. And something in me shifted, and I knew that I was only going to get the experience that I needed to understand myself, to understand other people, to be that force for good more of the time by stepping into the business world. I needed, and I knew this at a deep level, and it took me 3 years to listen to this voice. It took 3 years, and those were a very difficult few years because I wasn't listening. And because I really felt like, well, this is the business I was supposed to be. Everybody kept saying this is what you're supposed to do. But when that voice started up and said, go to the business world, everybody thought I was crazy. But I knew that there was something I needed to be able to empathize and understand people's everyday experience and learn how to bring this into those contexts, because at work, that's where people spend all of their time. If I can give them a nugget of inspiration in their normal flow of day-to-day work, it's a gift. And so that's been kind of my journey, is understanding that the message and the intuition isn't always spiritual in nature, that it's those things that sound kind of crazy that we really have to pay attention to, because there's something golden in that message.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've said it before, intuition is beyond intellectual understanding. And so how do you trust that quote unquote crazy, intuition beyond like your mind's like, what? It like defies what your mind's telling you. Like you said, your conscious mind,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, in overcoming that conscious mind saying, this is crazy, why would you do this? I've found I have learned so much in the last 7 years. I can't even tell you the amount of lessons. And now that I'm able to kind of bridge this gap and give people an understanding of calmness and centeredness and finding their voice at work, which, some people need to work in a corporate setting to provide for their families, to provide for themselves, that's the right path for them. And being able to kind of bridge that gap and teach some of the principles of NLP in a corporate setting has been unbelievably beautiful for me, and an amazing experience that I'm really thankful that I've had the opportunity to have. And I wouldn't have done that without listening to that voice.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, it took me a little while, and I know better.
We all do,
It's a
yeah.
practice. It's a practice. We have to remind ourselves of these, and we need people in our lives that remind us of these things.
Yeah, totally. Like, hence this show. I mean, it's so awesome to have community. We're talking about that. Like, we're all in it together, and just to listen, to each other and be that listening ear, that support, that open hand, open heart, all of it. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I love it. So I'm wondering if there's anything you want to share about like the corporate environment that you're in, using your intuition, how that comes up in everyday like work, decisions, relationships, kind of like your way of being. Because, for me, an entrepreneur, I talk with a lot of people who are building entrepreneurial businesses or, all these other things. I don't have a whole lot of experience in corporate. So I'd love, for people listening, they might have more of those experiences, and you could be really helpful for them in their journey.
Absolutely. Sorry about that. That was a
Oh, you're fine.
yeah. So very much so. And the first line of my job title or my job description is to anticipate and align with the needs of the business. That sounds like intuition to me.
Yeah. Totally.
Very much
Totally.
so. But no, I think it starts very early on. It starts in the interview process. It starts in putting together your LinkedIn profile. It's being able to connect with where other people are, to tune in and build a rapport with other individuals because you're clear and intuitive and listening and feeling where they are and having a dialogue. So I feel like I did a really great job in the interview process because I was connecting to the people that I was talking to. And most of the time it was on the phone. Sometimes it's virtual. Sometimes it was in person. But being able to slow down and not focus only on the thoughts, because there is starting to become there's an awakening happening in corporate America. It's very slow, but it's happening, that people are realizing that it's the soft skills, it's the interpersonal skills that make people successful at work. You can teach job skills, and I run learning and development, and that's my job, is to teach people how to do their jobs, to teach people how to be good leaders, and how to be good humans to one another. So this is definitely my everyday experience of being able to connect and teach people these skills. So it's less about that. When you interview with other people, it's about creating a connection and intuitively letting your self guide that conversation and be guided by the other person so that you engage in an authentic dialogue. Because the point is, you want to find the right role,
Yeah.
right? You're not trying to control and get the job. You're trying to connect with the person, connect with the company, and decide whether this is a good fit for both of you, right? Because otherwise it's not going to be successful. So that's one major area. And so before I go into interviews, I always take a few minutes to meditate beforehand, be really clear on what my objectives are in looking for a role. And what I'm trying to learn. And for me, it's always about learning something. What is it that I most need to learn out of this experience? And let that be the right role for me. But then it also, bridges into starting a new job and learning the ropes and being guided by who are the people I need to know? What do I need to focus on first? What are the potential flags that I need to watch out for? Where are there some minefields out there that I need to be aware of? So slowing down, taking the time to breathe, to center yourself, to ground. I know you've spent a lot of time with me grounding.
For sure. I'm
For
like, I'm
sure.
out there. Please bring me back to earth. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Which a lot of people, when they're new in a role, a lot of nerves and anxiety can come up, and that pulls you exactly out of your strong core, right? And can disconnect you from everything. So continually recentering, regrounding is absolutely critical, I think, to being successful. And the world that we're living in right now, let's face it, it's a little chaotic that
Mhm.
where we all are, and nobody is unaffected. If we're unaffected, then we're not in our bodies, right? Uh, it's very true, and I see this every day. And we've got to reconnect and take the time to have intentional conversations, intentional relationships, intentional learning. And I focus a lot in my role on developing humans for their next role or to be better in their current role. And it's the same thing that we do with NLP, with hypnotherapy, with coaching, is we set our intent first. We stop, we listen. What is it that we want to get to? Where do we want to be? Where do we see ourselves? And then we build a plan on how to get there. And so to me, you can't separate intuition from the corporate sphere. It's part of who we are, is how we show up. And I think it's been integral to my success personally. I had no professional career. I worked for myself from the time I was little. My family owned funeral homes. I grew up in a small business of women entrepreneurs. And I launched right into a corporate job, and I am now a director of learning and development with just a few years of experience. And I know I was successful because I was able to listen to my intuition, to build that rapport, to listen to other people, and learn to anticipate what they needed as well as the needs of the business. And so to me, it's very much how we show up, and a key to success in any area of life.
Yeah, I love that. And that's one of the things I'm like, when I saw your title, it was kind of hard to find you. And I was like, actually, I think my mom helped me find you on LinkedIn. And it was like Director of Learning and Development. I'm like, of course, she's like teaching hundreds of people like how to learn, and develop themselves. So I think that a couple key things that you said is the connection point, right? So connecting, and to me, that's where, even on the last show, I talked about, just taking a moment even now to connect to each other through our hearts, right? And just really open that place of infinite unconditional love, that we are interconnected, right? Like that sense of oneness that is real, that we all affect each other. And when we come from this place of love in our corporate work, in our businesses, in our families, and our lives and everything, right? Like from that place, that centered place of love, and then to drop your awareness down into your belly, that place that knows. And I agree, things aren't always certain, but there is a part of truth within us that we just know that we know, and to keep going back there. And I love what you said about, really hearing somebody and relating. And even yesterday I had a conversation like, no, there's no agenda for me. Like, what is true for you? Like, let's just really meet each other in truth, because then, things work or they don't together, right? And like, there's a constant togetherness. It's just what type of relationship, right? So just to be aware of, how am I affecting this person? What is it that they're needing, and how can I meet them? What role, like your role or whatever the role is, right? Like, how can I help you and support you best? So I think just to be aware, of how we're affecting each other, what the other people need, and how we can find a solution. That's always like where I'm at. I'm like, there's always a solution. There has to be.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, there is, because the world is infinite, so there's nothing but possibility and potential. So why wouldn't there be a solution? It's just a matter of getting to it. And as you said, that there's a meditation that I used to do about the halfway point throughout the year that kind of balanced my New Year's kind of deep dive into getting my whole year kind of somewhat planned out. But let's face it, this one was a little different. Uh, but what's really interesting is my numerology. This is a 5 personal year for me, which is already change.
oh
So
wow.
I was anticipating chaos.
Yeah.
And I kind of love it. You can either love it or hate it, and we have a choice. And
Right.
I'm choosing to make the best of it. It's not always easy, but that is a choice.
Mhm.
But I was so in June I did this meditation, and it's something that I think I've even taken you through, and we did in classes, and you've probably done it before many times, of kind of putting yourself into a beautiful place. If it's okay, can I just lead people through it
Absolutely,
right
girl.
now?
You're good. I trust you.
Oh,
Go for it. You got it.
wonderful. That would be great. So all you do is just put your feet flat on the ground for a moment and take a deep breath into your heart. And down through your feet. And as you ground down into the earth, just let yourself be surrounded in an environment that makes you feel really comfortable. And it could be nature, it could be your cozy bed, it could be next to your puppy, whatever that may be, just a comfortable place for you to be, where you can just relax for a moment, drop your shoulders, relax your eyes, and just be present for a moment in that comfortable place. And if there is a question that you've had on your mind, just let it be there. You don't have to state it, just you know what it is. And then just imagine, you're just pretending here for a moment, nothing fancy, but just imagine that there is a waterfall of light streaming over the top of your head, pouring down over your body. And as it does, it very gently, temporarily, just removes your physical form for a moment. You're still you. And as it continues to wash over you and just dissolves your physical form, let it also dissolve your thoughts, your pains, your hurts, the questions, the concerns, all pooling up at your feet and down below, down into the earth, just draining away for a little while into a pool. And as it continues to wash over you, It removes another layer of your name, where you're from, your job. All those titles just wash away for a moment. Your experiences, your past, your future, just dissolving away for just a moment until there's nothing left but the real you under all the things. And just breathe into that you for a moment. And take your time. This happens at different rate and speed for everyone. Just notice what that you is. Sparkly and clean without all of those things weighing it down. That being of light. And just sit with that for a moment. If that being of light was solving your problem, what would it say? What would it do? What's its solution? And that answer might come to you now or in a dream or in a couple of days. But just entertain that possibility that there is a part of you under everything else that knows absolute infinite truth. And as that waterfall of light continues washing over you and cleaning all those layers of you in that pool, allow those layers to just slowly come back onto you in whatever way makes sense, just refreshened and revitalized. And come back to yourself, breathe into your lungs. And you can open your eyes. And just consider that. And this is something I like to do fairly regularly, to just get back to, who am I under all this? Because my name isn't me. The school I went to isn't me.
Yeah.
We're so much more than that.
Yeah.
And Abby, you always remind me of that. So.
Oh, well, we remind each other of the deepest truth. And for me, it was just this light, right? Just heart and light, and light work seminars, right? Back to your work. Thank you for sharing that with everybody. And I guarantee you people are probably going to want to reach out to you. So I'll leave that up to you if you want to offer any of your information up to people. But like I've always told you, you're such a powerful healer of light and love. So thank you.
Thank you, Abby. And I'll certainly give some contact info at the end of the call.
Sure. Or if you want, even now, because we're probably going to wrap up with questions. So
Great.
just if you want.
Yeah, sure. You can certainly reach out to me via email. It's Janice, Janis, at lightworkseminars.com.
Awesome. And it's light work, not light works, just light work.
Correct. Yes. Okay. One S.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I know I have Life Force Connection, and sometimes people are like Life Force Connections. I'm like, nope, just Life Force Connection. So good.
It's just one.
Yeah. Yeah, sister, you're amazing. So everybody out, I definitely recommend you reaching out if you're feeling guided. And yeah, is there any other ways you want to show us how to apply this? To me, intuition is also so much about practical application. So, we did these meditations and you were like, I'm like, what's the next step? You're like, do a brochure. I'm like, okay. So I do a brochure and put it on people's windshields in a grocery parking lot. And yes, got clients. What's the next thing? Build a website. Okay, I did it. Oh, get an office space. Okay. So I took action on my intuition. I practically applied it and built the wellness centers in schools. So I just want everybody to you can get all the wisdom and information in the world and then take action where it's aligned. And again, the communication piece, I love that, because for me, it's even after this, for me to have conversations with a lot of people, because everything involves everybody, what do you need? How maybe we could do this solution, a solution came through for me of what if we did this, and so just to kind of think about how you're being guided to apply your intuitive guidance and communicate with the world around you. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is the key, right? You have to take action on whatever that guidance is, because if you stop listening to your intuition, right, those blockages occur and it gets harder and harder. And so I have seen this over and over, that when we're intuitively guided to a decision, we have to take that step. And the only reason that we wouldn't is fear, right? That there's another part of us that is concerned or isn't convinced yet. That's usually the way I look at it. It's just there's something else that needs convincing. And so the practical application of that is having somebody to call, to have an Abby to call and say, because you have kept me honest many times over the years. It requires a community. And if there is nothing else that COVID has taught us, is the power of community. We're what I'm seeing here in San Francisco. I'm in the center of the city, and people are coming together as neighbors in a way that they never have before, and it's beautiful. And I'm seeing this. My sister has this down in Encinitas. They're all meeting on their block and having dinner socially distanced, and this has been my big lesson throughout COVID is the power of community. It's having somebody to talk to and say, I'm feeling guided to do this, but I'm concerned about this, and having somebody you can trust to talk that out and really to be your cheerleader and your coach and your guide, to make sure that you honor all parts of yourself and that guidance, and looking for ways of all those little decisions that we make throughout the day. How many decisions do we make every day? Are they in alignment? Are we choosing to eat that lunch because we're really busy? Like, are you I know I'm the culprit of the sad desk lunch from time to time. That's not an intuitive decision, right? That's a very, reactive response. And if there's one thing that I can impress upon people, is the power of making intentional decisions, of slowing down, taking a step back, and being what I call in the corporate speak is being more strategic. When people talk about making business decisions, they talk about making strategic decisions. And the only way you can do that is to take a step back, look at the big picture, pay attention to all of the variables that are there, and really make a decision that validates all of the different pieces and all of the requirements, and then taking the action and the practical steps to create it, right? Because we do live in a physical plane right now, and we need to take that into consideration. And then the other piece of it is also making sure, and the reason I say you've got to listen to all parts of yourself when you're making an intuitive decision is that sometimes, people talk about making a gut reaction or a gut decision. And I want to caution people around that, because that's just one part of ourselves, and that can lead to bias. And as we've seen, discrimination with all that's going on in the world, I think that's a really timely conversation to be having, is what's the difference between your intuition and a bias, and making sure that as you're learning to better follow your intuition, that you're listening to all the parts of you, not just having that gut reaction that is more in a reactive mode rather than an aligned, balanced, intuitive mode. So I just felt called that I needed to call that out, that we're not talking about that. That's a very different response. And what we're talking about here is full alignment in your heart, in your being, and all those different chakras, and listening to that, what Edgar Cayce called that small inner voice, that still space where you're in a centered, grounded, and balanced position.
Huh. I'm so glad you mentioned that. And I feel like sometimes, because I've always said follow your gut, which I do believe at the right time, in alignment with what you're saying, of everything balanced, because what you're saying, because I've done it, which is my gut reaction based on a thought I've had about a judgment or a decision or something, whether myself or I've lived or whatever it is, right? And so that immediate gut response could be in response to a thought that is biased, which is actually some type of a judgment or a thought. So then your gut, your intuition is going to align. Oh, you don't want to do that? Okay, I'll tell you to go here. And so it is kind of more that like gut response versus full alignment, which you just guided us through in that beautiful meditation of like, It's not coming from fear. And like, again, in the intuitive success coaching process, unconditional love and non-judgment. So when you're in unconditional love and non-judgment, there's an equilibrium that your systems, your chakra systems, your beingness, like you just took us through, can relax and find that still small place. And then it might be your gut at that point. But
It absolutely would.
Right. So what you just did is help us all take out the bias, the judgments, the reactivity, and actually move into a place of centeredness, which I knew totally you were supposed to be on this show today, because it's like in that place, and a lot for me too, because I'm like, oh my gosh, this teacher is like so grounded, like who she is. And so then for everybody listening, it's like we all get to come together in our, divine presence, our aligned presence.
Yes.
And then intuitive gut decisions from that place.
Exactly. And that it makes all the difference. And that's why I always tell people, if you're looking to build your intuition, you have to meditate. It's a requirement. You've got to pay attention. You've got to slow down and be in that aligned place, right? That unconditional love space, because there is no bias there. There is no judgment there. And that is the place to really build that and hone that skill.
Yeah. And then you can trust your intuition.
Then you can trust it. Yes. Yes. That's the key.
Yeah. I love it. Ding, ding. My computer is like, yes, that's right.
That's the one.
This is usually the time that we offer up questions. So I forgot to say at the beginning of the show, I talked to Bria and we had some technology issues that we're working out. So we actually don't have the ability to have you guys call in right now. But if you guys want to type in your questions, guys and gals, into the chat box, I believe you can. If not, we'll just keep talking, and you can always email us our questions, Abby, ABBY, at lifeforceconnect.com, or to Janice. But yeah, we wish we could take callers, but my system it's funny, it actually boots out all background noise. So even having these big speakers, it was booting out the speakers. It's rather entertaining. No outside distractions, I guess. But like I said, if you're able to type your questions, I'm not even sure if that works technology-wise. If you do see the chat box and you can type in, please feel free to do so. If not, Janice, anything else? I know you had a person that was going to call in, but I don't know if there's anything else you want to add or where you want to go from here.
Yeah, I could talk about these things all day long. Yeah. No, but I actually had a question for you because when we were talking over the weekend, just briefly, it was great kind of reconnecting. Yeah. And I was always curious, like through your practice of helping people build their intuition, what have you been seeing lately in our pandemic world that you think might be helpful for my group of individuals, that we can work together to help people kind of process what's going on in the world and really get all of these layers out of the way so that they can connect to that unconditional love, feel filled up by it.
Yeah. So what comes to mind is Shri and Kira. So they have been teaching me and all of us that follow Shri and Kira. To me, they're teachers of divine light for me. And they talk about, Kira talks about a chalice of the heart. So to be coming from the heart. So what I've seen in the people I've worked with is these amazing clients and people I get to work with. Like, it's such an honor for me. Like, I feel so grateful to have the opportunity. And what I'm seeing with them and doing my best in my own life and definitely practicing is to stay in my heart. So those of us who are staying in our heart, we're actually able to rise above the drama and the chaos and kind of the craziness and be guided by that higher place of love. And like I said, I love that meditation because we can replay this over and over and get in that place. But I'm watching in my own life, to be honest, like I can do almost anything I want right now. Like, I mean, there's certain countries that are like not letting US citizens in right now, but the power of love is so great. Like, doors that I thought were closed are now reopening, like to the point where, because I've been coming from love, I believe, and my mission and vision has been so driven towards that and towards service, it's like everything's open. So to answer your question, what I'm seeing is my clients and just people in my world, and myself included, like when they're coming from their heart, things open. you're creating that, and like a deep gratitude to Kira. I mean, I feel like she just blessed me so much by inviting me into her world. And, she offered a co-host on her show, and she, to me, is like a teacher. So I feel like we're all learning deeper levels of love, and it's the community, right? Like all of Oneness Talk Radio, like, oh my gosh, what a beautiful mission to come together in that place. So to stay in that frequency of higher love. And one of my clients, we laugh about it, but it's true. And both him and Kira talk about the song Higher Love. I think it's Steve Winwood. Oh my God, I rocked out to that for years, and so did they. And we're like, higher love, baby, like we're going higher, because like you don't want to stay in that craziness. You want to work together to move above and beyond and reach 1 million people with that. Like just keep expanding it, keep going, keep growing. And we need each other to do that. So to me, that's the, in short, is the heart. Like, she talks about that being the grounding, which I'm still working with because I have to stay grounded in my body. So I'm still in that learning of my heart and my body being able to stay grounded, because I'm like, whoa, So yeah, it's always been a thing for me. Stay grounded, you'll go, because I just, shoot up to the stars. So yeah, anything else you want to add or ask, share around that?
Yeah, it's I'm so glad that we're aligned on this, but on the community front, I've been I live in basically the center of San Francisco, not downtown, but smack dab in the center of the city. And throughout all of the protests, and there was looting, and there's been a lot going on here in the city. And I felt like I needed to call out for those of you that might be listening that are really in the trenches with all of this, have either seen violence or really felt like I have, just absolutely connected to the movement, to the Black Lives Matter movement specifically, and the emotions that has brought up in myself and the people around me. I think is a very powerful thing. And I've had quite a few people ask me, how do I get over these feelings? And I consistently say the same thing. Don't get over the feelings. Feel the feelings. This is a time to feel what other people feel. And I know that's a hard message to receive, because it's hard to feel these things. But if we want to create community, we have to feel one another. We have to connect with one another. We need to understand, if we're going to bring the consciousness of the planet up, which to me is still my mission, has always been my mission, and I know it is yours as well. We have to listen to one another. We have to feel what each other are going through. We don't have to live there. We have to visit, right? We need to feel those feelings, process them through. They don't need to stay in us, but we have to allow ourselves to feel sad, to feel outraged, to connect with that, and then to drop into all parts of ourselves. And like you said, step into that unconditional love, and then send that back out and make decisions from that place, having allowed yourself to be educated by these inputs that we have. I'm an educator at the end of the day. And even when I was, a hypnotherapist, I was an educator, because I was teaching people how to listen to themselves, right? And find their own answers. And that's always been the key to coaching, to education, even in the corporate space. And you can only make really good decisions and intuitive decisions when you have the information, right? You've got to take in the inputs in whatever way you get them. Some of us get feelings, some of us get thoughts, some of us are very cerebral and like to study the knowledge and the numbers, and I might do a little bit of all of those. But there are no bad inputs. There are no bad circumstances. So kind of coming back to that idea of community is, allow yourself to feel what people are feeling, to experience what's going on with the world. It will make you more intuitive when you can really tap in what's going on. Don't live there, right? Just like I said, just visit, don't let it totally take you down. You can step back out of it again. but at least allow your big toe. I'm from Florida originally. We used to joke about this. You just stick your big toe in the pool, just to have a sense of that, because we're all one, right? That was something that my mother taught me early on. That was kind of our motto at the funeral home. We are one, and we are, and we should, or we could really look at how we can bring ourselves all together through this journey, and really focus on building our community and connecting with one another more of the time, even though we might be physically disconnected.
Yeah, no, I love that. I was just talking to my cousin last night, and we realize like we all relate, like what you think isn't always, but we all have the same feelings, right? Like you might think, oh, well, that's perfect, or that person's life is perfect, but you don't really know until you actually relate and realize we kind of all go through the same feelings. And so there was this just connecting moment of like reality check of like, we're all feeling it. And that does bring us closer together. And it's okay, like you said, to feel that. And I love that you said, tap in, but don't live there, and keep raising your frequency, but be aware. And the other thing was, when you're making a decision, I also have just been through this in this last week, more information. I didn't have all that same information or wasn't aware of it all a week ago than I am now. I'm like, whoa, that kind of changes things. That's a lot more information. Okay, halt the train. Let me feel now. So, tap in. And I would tell students and myself too, it's like, okay, if you feel fear, is it more information? What is it telling you? What's the message? Then once you get the message, it sounds kind of funny, but the fear kind of goes away. Like I'm thinking like when I started my practice, like I wasn't really afraid. I was excited. Like people might think it was like crazy to start at 19. I was like, I don't really care. Like if you want to be like, you left your scholarship and you should get a degree, I'm like, oh, well, I'm doing what feels right for me. Like it didn't affect me. So the fear almost like isn't going to be there once it's addressed. Like I feel like to your point of listening to what is that part telling you? And then also I'm hearing like perfect love cast out fear, right? So when you're in that place of perfect love that we all probably just went to, there is a oneness and a support of it all working together. So kind of long-winded answer, but I just feel like there is a point of connection and a point of like getting all the information we need to then move in unity from our hearts with each other and with everything.
Yeah. And there's no wrong way to do intuition.
Yeah.
We all have our own personal journey to get there. And however we choose to process information or take in information, it's all good.
Yeah. I love that. I
There's
love
there's
that.
no pressure. There's no right way or wrong way. It's your way. And that to me is the beauty of what you do is helping people to find that way for themselves and how to bring themselves back to their heart and listen to those messages in whatever way makes sense, and connect to that unconditional love, and use the information that we get from the world around us, from our own intuitive sense, from whatever system makes sense. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, it does relieve pressure because I know for me, it's like always wanting to do it right and perfect so that like, I mean, I literally
Me
said right
too.
wrong. It's like, I'm like, I can't do anything. I don't want to make a wrong decision. And I know, I mean, so many people I've talked to recently and myself too, it's like, oh my God, the fear, and it's like, like even just to take a deep breath and be like, okay, to really take in that, like, if there's no right or wrong, if love is showing the way, like in my meditation yesterday, it's like, what would love say? Like, move in the direction of love. And so that can kind of release and dispel some of that back and forth stuff because, like you said, you know, they can be contradictory sometimes, different parts of us. But if we bring them together, get the message of what they're saying, and then move in that highest alignment of our balanced, calm, like Buddha-like selves, right? Then we can move in that place of connection and greater flow.
Absolutely. That's it. It's all about getting into that flow and that perfect alignment that is only perfect because we're listening.
Yeah, I love that. I love you, sister. You're so
Oh, I love you too, Abby.
great. Is there anything else you want to share with our audience? And like I said, it doesn't look like anybody's able to come in or coming in right now. So next week, guys, hopefully we'll have that up and running again. And like I said, you can email us. Dennis, is there anything else that you want to share? We have a couple minutes left.
Yeah, I think I'll just reinforce that, there are no bad decisions. That if there's nothing else to remember that every choice we make is going to just take us down a different path, right? There's so many paths for us to take at any moment, and each one is going to be a learning experience. So, as you're going through the journey of honing your intuition and really learning that, it's really important to stay out of the fear and just say, I'm just learning, right? Every decision I make is just going to lead to a different outcome. And you're going to learn something if you allow for that, if you keep coming back to your unconditional love, and you take that time to really listen. There is no bad experience. It's just a different learning. So it's all good. That's my big message today. And I'm sure that's what I need to hear as well, is that it's all good. And we're all going through this together. Somebody said something to me interesting the other day. We were stuck in traffic trying to get down south to visit a friend. And one person was a little annoyed by the traffic, and somebody else turned to them and said, we're all just moving forward together.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that was so Californian, and I loved it.
I love that. And universal, right? We are all moving forward.
We're all moving forward together, and, put a little less pressure on ourselves. It's all good. We're going to be all right.
That's
Practice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. Wow. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Big love, big hugs, energetic hugs. And we'll see you next week. Please feel free to reach out to Janice or I, and we love you.
Thanks so much, Abby.
Welcome. Namaste. Bye.
Bye.